Good morning, guys. This morning we are looking at the next story in our unit. Searching for a highlighter. And it is Snow White Meets the Huntsman. So this is on page 6 of your reader. And we've read 2 fables already. This story is a fairy tale. So I want you real quick to just kind of do a picture walk and look over the next couple of pages and think about what we see that supports the idea that it's a fairy tale. I don't know if you remember, but we talked about that. We made a chart in our notebook the other day about fairy tales, fables, and fantasies. So I'm going to start with my title, and I have a connection with my title because I remember a fairy tale with Snow White in it. So Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, which is right here, an excerpt from Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Remember that an excerpt is just a short part. It's not the whole story. It's just a short part of the story. So I can see here's one indication that it's a fairy tale. Make sure you're making notes with me. At the bottom of the page, I see a picture. I notice the castle. And I remember fairy tales having royalty, kings, queens, princesses, castles. I also notice it's not a real photograph. When I flip the page, at the top, I see the queen, another sign of a fairy tale, that it's a fairy tale, excuse me. And it also tells me in the side of the picture that this is the Wicked Queen from Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. If I continue looking, I will find more pictures that support that, but just because we don't have a lot of time, we're not going to look any further. We understand it's a fairy tale. Today we are looking for key events so that we can make summaries of our story. So remember that key details or key events are events that keep the plot going. The plot are those actions that cause an effect. Because this happened, then something else happened. So it's not all the details of a story, but those key details. Starting at the beginning in paragraph 1, it says, "Once upon a time, I remember." This is also a common fairy tale feature. "In midwinter, when the snowflakes were falling like feathers from heaven, a queen sat sewing at her window." I absolutely love the description of this setting. It was midwinter. We have snowflakes falling like feathers. Doesn't that give us a beautiful image? It wasn't snowing really hard. They're just drifting through the air from feathers from heaven. The window had a frame as black as ebony wood. Ebony is obviously black, so that helps me understand the word ebony. As she sewed, she looked up at the snow and pricked her finger with the needle. 3 drops of blood fell into the snow. The red on the white looked so beautiful that she thought to herself, "If only I had a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the wood in this frame." So in paragraph 1, we need to think about what was the first thing that happened that's important to what might happen next. I'm going to go ahead and read to paragraph 2 just to see what happened next to help me make sure I pick the right details. "Soon afterward, the queen had a little daughter who was as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as ebony wood. Therefore, they called her Little Snow White. Sadly, as soon as the child was born, the queen died." So in these first 2 paragraphs on page 6, I think the first key event is that I'm going to highlight. She pricked her finger. 3 drops of blood fell into the snow, because that is where her idea came from, her thought. Then she had the thought, "If only I had a child as white as snow, as red as blood, as black as the wood in this frame." And then after, guess what? She did, right? So I think that probably is my next key detail, because that introduces us to one of our main characters. So that's a key event, that she was born. Then we have the last event that is probably a key detail in our story, because then the queen died. Okay, so in my key events here, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 key details. If I were going to use these key details to summarize what I've read so far, I would combine the sentences to say, the queen pricked her finger with a needle, the blood fell into the snow. Then she thought, I wish I had a child as white as snow, red as blood, and as black as the wood. Soon she did, but soon after she died. Okay? And I'm not going to write that right now because I know our time is limited. But those would be the details that I would include in my summary. And notice we numbered them. So on those questions that we are struggling with on our assessments still, where it says what are key details and put them in order, this would help me to find the order if I had a question like that. Turning to the next page. A year later, the king took himself another wife. She was a beautiful woman, but she was proud and arrogant. Ooh, I'm going to underline that because I know my text-to-text connection from the gnat and the lion that being proud and arrogant are our connotation, our feelings, those are kind of negative feelings, right? It's not a very good thing. She could not stand it if anyone might surpass her in beauty. This queen had a magic mirror. Every morning she stood before it, looked at herself and said, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all? To this the mirror answered, You, my queen, are fairest of all. Then she was satisfied, for she knew that the mirror spoke the truth. There's her arrogance coming through. Snow White grew up and became ever more beautiful. She was 7 years old. When she was 7 years old, she was as beautiful as the light of day, even more beautiful than the queen herself. Okay, so let's think about this. I think it's important that the king married another woman who was proud and arrogant, so I may combine that into one of my key details. The fact that she could not stand if anyone surpassed her beauty, I think is a key detail because that's going to affect the way that she treats someone who might be as beautiful or more beautiful than her. The part about the mirror, mirror on the wall, we know that in the story Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, that happens over and over again. But in this part of our story, it's not as much of a key detail that she does it. It's just letting us know that this is something that she does. At the end, I think it's important to note that Snow White grew up and became ever more beautiful, even more beautiful than the queen herself. Okay, because I think this is going to present our problem in the story. And if I were going to put this into my summary, I would combine these two sentences and make this my third key detail. So the king took a new wife who was proud and arrogant. She couldn't stand if anyone was more pretty than she. Snow White grew up to be even more beautiful than the queen herself. There's my summary from page 7. Today in class, we're going to finish page 8 and page 9 together with annotating and identifying those key details and summarizing it, okay? So when you come to class this morning, just come with page 6 and 7 annotated the way we just did together and those notes made so that you're ready on page 8 and 9 with your classmates to identify key details and the summary of those. And then we'll be able to put together a summary of our whole story. We'll see you in just a little bit. Thanks for joining me.